Welcome to the Seattle Overload podcast, where our preview guest series continues, except we don't have anything to preview. We've got a bit of a review. It's the bye week, the Seahawks bye week, and we're joined by a perfect guest for that. Michael-Shawn Dugar of The Athletic, Seattle, killing the content over there. I think if I'm going to read about the Seahawks, which I do quite a lot, I will check out Mike's articles because he gets all the scoops. I also, the Seahawks Man-to-Man podcast, again, a rival podcast to us, but I mean, it's a very good listen with him and Christopher Kidd. Also very welcoming to me when I was in Munich reporting on the Seahawks. Mike was a good guy, and it was nice to have a chat. I think we talked about Derek Carr, Mike, but thanks so much for doing this, and how are you doing?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing good. Just woke up from a little bye-week nap. That was great. I'm enjoying some time away from football a little bit. And I watched the Thursday night game, but even that, I was like, it was just on a faint TV in the background of a restaurant I was at while I was at dinner with the homies. So yeah, the bye week is cool to kind of step back a little bit. It's not just the players that do it, it's the media too sometimes.
Absolutely, much needed break. I know Ty is also covers the Mariners baseball, so Ty, your bye week break hasn't really materialized.
I have a 6-month bye week break because unfortunately they mess around too much in September. So
can I ask a Mariner question?
Yeah, go for it.
So I've been kind of following the 54%, things like that.
That whole debacle.
It feels the 54% feels very similar to Pete Carroll's rule of 53, where it's like based on some kind of rough math a little bit.
Yeah.
That I haven't heard Jerry yet explain. But what I am confused upon, beyond the bad math, potentially, if that is, it seems like there's just a blanket, like the math part seems very blanket over the sample instead of being relative to the other teams that are in your whoever is in baseball. It's divisions and conferences, league or whatever.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I'm confused. I haven't read everything. I missed his. I haven't read listened to the Brock and Salk thing. But has he mentioned more of the math part of this? Because it's confusing me.
So I'm an absolute sicko when it comes to baseball and just like roster building in baseball. So I understood what he was saying. It was completely stupid to like say that in a public forum and when you're speaking to like the average fan, but like that's just gonna go over most people's heads. But the 54%, it's what most good teams shoot for over a 10-year span. If you win 54% of your games over a 10-year span, I mean, only 5 teams over the last decade have won 54% of their games, and that's like the Astros and the Cardinals and the Yankees, like all the elite teams, really. So like that, like just on the surface, it's good from a sustainability standpoint. Like, you want to build a sustainable winner over a decade period, great. Like, that's awesome. But like trying to sell that to like the average fan, especially after the year that they had, that's not it, dude. Like, you're not reading the room at all.
Is there something to 54 versus 53 or 55 or 57?
It's just like that's like the sweet spot where you can account for variance, right? Like, if you win above 54%, you're pretty much guaranteed to get into the postseason. And if you're under that, it's only really because like something probably went wrong, right? Like injuries mounted up, stuff like that. So like, because this baseball is so unpredictable, right? It's a 162 game season. It's 6 months, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I could go on about this for like an hour.
No, yeah, we don't have to. I've been kind of following that a little bit, like just very confused on why. I'm not mad at Jerry for saying it. I was like, all right, I need you to back that up for me a little bit, because it seems a little bit too. The 10-year part also seems weird. It's not like everyone signs a 10-year contract either, so it's just like Anyway, we can do Seahawks, but yeah, I've been trying to follow that too during the bye week as well.
It was like
Maddie knows how much.
He brought back the curtain, and you saw something you weren't supposed to see, and then now he's opened that can of worms. You're like, okay, so that is actually quite interesting, beyond being like, for the average fan, crazy. But for him to then tell you, the nitty gritty of that, it's suddenly like it would take like 3 hours, and he would tell you too much and things he's probably not allowed to tell you.
Yeah, the best and worst thing about Jerry Dipoto is that he's very, very open. But he gets into like baseball theory and all this stuff, and it's like most of the people that are listening to this like have no clue what you're talking about right now and don't care. Like, just straight up, like, don't care. Like, that's like, keep that to yourself. But yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. If I'm a season ticket holder and I'm gonna spend all this money
Just
and
tell me we win in
$12 for Bud Lights or whatever at the stadium. It's like, nah, man, I want us to shoot for 100%, even if that's not totally feasible.
Yeah.
All right, so the Seahawks, and I like how you compared it to the rule of 53, because that was another comment where that caused the funky math caused a massive fan confusion. But Mike, where are the Seahawks now? So bye week 3-1. Has your opinion changed on them from the start of the season? Is there anything where you're like, that's interesting that they've done that? My perspective suddenly is more positive, or maybe negative.
Yeah, I didn't think the defense would kind of mesh the way it has already. Like I thought it would take a little bit, as it has in several Seahawks seasons in recent years. Like I thought it would just follow a trend there. And after week 1, it looked like, oh man, they might do it again. But I just keep watching the defensive film each week and checking the run numbers, and I'm just kind of waiting for the clock to strike 12, and then I'm just like, nah, never mind. Like this is real deal, and it's one of those where you definitely have to watch it versus just look at the numbers, because every time I tweet the numbers or something, or put them in a story, there's some comment to the effect of, well, Mike, look who they played. It's just like, nah, man, those teams look bad because of how the Seahawks are playing them. Like, it's not just that the Rams may stink at running the ball. I actually don't know if the Rams are good at it, but it's like Kyron and Cam couldn't go anywhere because of how they were being played. Same thing with the Panthers, and like the Giants look like they've never executed a successful run play ever, in that Monday night game. So I didn't expect that to flip so fast. I was very confident that it would flip eventually. Like I knew what Bobby was going to bring beyond just being a good player. Just all last year, he just kept coming up, whether formally or informally, like privately or on the record convos. He just kept coming up about how important he was. That's why when he resigned, I'm like, oh yeah, no brainer. I just didn't think that would flip as fast. And then the third down offense, I thought would flip faster. I was like, all right, you guys have been bad at this for so long, through different quarterbacks, different coordinators. I was like, come on. Eventually, this has got to turn. At least maybe get some positive variance in your favor. And it just has not. Like I've watched I think every third down drop back. I don't know if I've checked all the runs, but all the third down drop backs, it just something wonky goes on nearly every time. Someone blows a block, or everyone's clumped together on the routes, or someone drops a pass. Gino's inaccurate. It's just something different each time, which is it's got to be frustrating for them. It's frustrating to watch because it's one of those. I think I used a quote in my story where Jordan Brooks said, "You get what you emphasize." He was talking about the run D, and I was hearing Jordan, and I'm just like, "Yeah, you're right about your side of the ball," because those guys emphasize the hell out of that every week. Every day in training camp, there was a third down, red zone period, blitz period, third and shorts, third and mediums, third and longs. And they were decent at it for the most part. I thought they would be much better at that. And no, they haven't even got close to average. I think right now, as we're talking, they're the worst third down team in the league, maybe them and the Jets, which is, you just don't want to be near the Jets in anything offensively. And, here they are again.
Yep.
So, the vibe of this team is it seems like it's really changed, especially over the last year and a half, 2 years. Basically, since they made those really tough decisions last year. There's, no quarterback resentment now. Team's just younger. Pete looks like he's having the time of his life right now. How do you feel about all of that? Is there something to that? Are you noticing a significant change from the 2021 team? I mean, it was obviously terrible in 2021, but from those last few Rust era teams to now.
Yeah, particularly from the Rust, the end of the Rust run was just getting kind of weird. And I know it because I was the locker room was closed in 2020 and 2021, so wasn't around those guys as much. But I was reporting on it and then asking those guys about it, and then it just felt so weird, just being around some of those guys. I remember one time they had a bad game defensively, and you could tell those guys were so much out of answers. One player asked me, he was like, "Dude, what are you seeing up there, man? Give me something, because down here, it just looks like we're screwed." I'm paraphrasing, but it was not good, particularly defensively. It was not coming together, and it does seem like there's more trust in the scheme. Like speaking just on defense right now, it seems like there's a lot more trust on that. Like you could see, like Benson Mayoa knew he wasn't being used the right way. Like Carlos Dunlap was like just basically waiting to just bubble up and say, "Why do I keep dropping back?" I think he eventually talked about it publicly after I think it was a 2-sack game against the Cardinals, maybe late in the year, 2021 season. But like those guys were just really frustrated. We've seen some comments, I believe, from like Al Woods and the Jets. Talked about like scheme stuff. Like it just the belief wasn't totally there. You could tell certain guys didn't trust other guys on the defense to consistently do their job. And so some of those guys aren't here anymore. It just wasn't meshing. So the belief in one another is back. Like when you look at, I watched every part of that 10-part documentary on the 2013 team, and I've known a lot of the stuff that was in there. Like I didn't really learn anything new, but it just reinforced that one of the strengths that they have is they believed in each other. They believed in each other within the structure of the defense and out of the structure of the defense. Like they knew if Earl just saw something and just took off, it's like, all right, cool. E's taking off, but he's probably right because that's E. So I'll do, I'll cover for him, however that looks. Or if Cam did, or Sherman or Bobby or Michael Bennett was really popular for that too. Like this ain't my gap, but I'm just gonna go. And then he was right, or he was offsides. Really no in between. But they trusted Mike B to do that. They all just believed in each other. They believed in the scheme and things like that. That seems to be back this season. Now, part of that is just because, they're playing well right now. Who knows? They're going a 3-game losing streak. Maybe they're all yelling at each other. So there is part of that. The Russ stuff was always just really awkward, for guys to be around, especially because you were like blending guys who had been there for some of the stuff earlier with all the new guys who are just like, man, I'm just here to play ball. Like, what's all this drama with the quarterback and the GM and the head coach? Like, it's so fascinating how many people who are just watching the Seahawks from afar, you get here or you watch an interview and you're like, wait, they all didn't love Russ? I'm confused. What do you mean?
Yeah,
he's Russell Wilson. They don't love Russ. He's the best quarterback you guys have ever had. What's going on? And you have to sit down and explain, and it's like telling someone Santa's not real. It's like, oh, wow, I didn't realize it. So yeah, I think when you eliminate that part of it, just how polarizing Russell was, you just get a different vibe. But last year, it just kind of didn't feel. It was a weird space for them to be in because they didn't really know who to turn to all the time when things got funky. And then they were like embracing this lovable underdog thing, which was cool. But this year feels more like legitimate. Like a lot of these guys in the room have chips on their shoulder, but they don't consider themselves lovable underdogs. Like these guys consider themselves the best. Like a Kobe Bryant, even I'll use him as an example. Like even a role player type guy, like considers himself one of the best. So he's not like a lovable underdog. Gino Smith called himself a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback in like 2014. He's not the lovable underdog, little engine that could type of thing. Doesn't really fit a lot of these guys' personalities. Chenna is the same way. Jay Reed's the same way. These guys, Reek and Spoon. I think Spoon at his last press conference was like, I want to, prove myself right that I'm like one of the best corners in the game. Like all of these guys feel like they are the juggernaut in their story. They're the hero in their own story, not like the guy with the slingshot and the rock. So I know he's who wins, but you guys get my point. Like, so I think this is kind of matched a little bit more. These guys feel like they're just a bunch of badasses running through the opponents versus like, oh, we're this little engine that could going up the hill. So I think that part is like on a psychological level, these guys are kind of where they belong instead of last year kind of manufacturing this chip on their shoulder because people thought they would stink.
Right, that's super interesting. From afar, that's kind of the impression I'm getting too. The way that just the team are talking in press conferences and the questions you guys are asking them and the way that they're responding and then out on the field, and Gino Smith from afar again seeming like guys like him, right? Like it seems, and now he's the clear guy, like he's the consensus dude, at least in the locker room. And I know there's, his contract, they have outs if they want it. He's probably, I think, from a fan base wide perspective, not fully the franchise yet. Although by the end of the season, from what we see, it should hopefully happen. But
I feel like last year was like the proof of concept. It worked, and now it's like this year. It's like, all right, let's go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very much so. Although a lot of those guys really believed in Gino, and Gino was like, he definitely was always one of the guys beforehand. Like there wasn't that many dudes who were like, man, this 7 stinks. Like it was just they just believed in him. Some of that was like guys just the version of Gino they were in their mind. You know how sometimes you just have a vision of someone and it just stays that way, it never changes. Some of them were just like, man, that's Gino from West Virginia, man. I know he can sling it. Right. That's just kind of who he was to guys like Quandre, for example, who played him, against him in college. And I think they hung a lot of touchdowns on Texas when he played them. So like and someone in Quandre's mind, it's like, that's Gino from West Virginia, dog. G can play, and there were a lot of guys who just felt that way, if only for the college stuff, or maybe they played him once or like it with the Jets, but like there wasn't this vision of like, I don't know, man, if we turn things over to G, this might go bad. Like no one's actually said this to me, but I bet you if I really like put a polygraph on some of these guys, they probably wanted Gino to play in that Packers game in 2021, probably feeling that they were going to win. Like, that's how much they believed in him then. So that's why last year was just a bunch of, we're not surprised, guys. We've always known that Gino could sling it.
It was always crazy to me, the belief that they had from the jump, like preseason. It was very clear that Gino, like DK pointed out, he'd been saying from the start that Gino was the guy, and he's proved it all so far. And then on the defense, interesting how a lot of the guys, kind of to your point, they've been talking about how dudes this year have been more bought in, and you saw in previous years how maybe that wasn't the case. The hearing you describe, like grievances with the system is interesting, how that kind of brings up guys saying they're more bought in this year. When was your first year covering the team, and like how does the vibe compare to then to now?
If my first year was 2017, I had just taken over for Steve Cohen at the Seattle PI. Steve was still at the PI, but he moved to like general assignment. He's an editor for us at The Athletic now. So he was kind of walking me through things. I didn't travel at that time, which is a pretty significant thing. Because when guys see you on the road, it's like, I remember some guys will still see me on the road and be like, oh man, you travel too? And I'm like, yeah, man, I'm here. And then by like week 6, they're like used to seeing you, whether you bump into them at the hotel or like whatever, because some writers stay at the team hotel. I don't anymore, but I used to. So yeah, back then, so you guys know 2017 is like the beginning of the end, depending on who you are. That's when Cliff hurt his neck, and I think that might have been Mike B's last year here, and Sherm's Achilles, and all the come get me game from Earl in Dallas, where Bobby and Earl got into it. Yeah, losing Cam. It was just where they tried to trade Jeremy Lane, and then he failed the physical, so they couldn't trade Jeremy Lane. Like that was real. I'll never forget that. It was really, really awkward. Like when I see players think of like usually in the NBA is where you get a lot of guys beefing about how they find out when they get traded. Like Drew Holiday's wife just spoke about that. I think of Jeremy Lane's like, dog, he got traded and then basically couldn't go. So, and then he had to just come back to the team and then play. They needed him because guys got hurt. It was super, super duper awkward. Anyway, so back then, I remember like when they traded for Sheldon, it was like, yo, this team's going to go back to the Super Bowl. This is what they got. And then by the end of the year, everyone got fired. They replaced Bevel with Shoddy and all the other, I can't remember all the coaching changes off the top of my head, but that was like a weird time for that to be my first year. Because I don't remember how many other people's first year that was. Like all the people who are kind of here now have been around, like, Tim Booth at the AP and Bob Condotta at the Times and Greg at the TNT and Curtis Crabtree and, all these guys, Masvita, Brady Henderson, they've all been around. They were like around for the Super Bowl teams and all this and all that. And like, they all have stories about the Percy Hart when they found out about the Percy Harvin trade. Meanwhile, I just get here and the Legion of Boom just dies. And so everything since then has been kind of weird, seeing new guys come in, new guys go out, new guys have beef with other players, new guys have beef with the media, new guys have beef with their coaching staff or their position coaches or whatever, winning, losing, the massacre in Green Bay. And this, I'm talking about the playoff one this time. And they're like how frustrating the Cowboys loss was in that 2018 season. Like guys who played in that game were really pissed about the game plan that year. I was like, it's just seen so much, but I feel like back then, that first year, it was like still the core of like what we know about the Seahawks, Legion of Boom, and then everything since then has been like a really long transition, like a really long interlude on an album, just trying to get to whatever the next vibe is gonna be. It was never like solidified. Like it was always something weird each year. Not weird, but just something different. Like Russ and Bobby being there always kind of held a lot of stuff together, but like losing Earl in 2018 made some things different. And eventually having guys get drafted to replace KJ, and then losing KJ, and then losing Bobby. It all just got weird. But now it feels like there is an actual identity now, and it's kind of what I mentioned earlier, where guys are not this isn't Legion of Boom. We're the best in the world quite yet, but it is like that's what we want to be. We're not the little team that no one knows about. You know what I'm saying? This ain't Appalachian State upsetting Michigan. They're Michigan they're Michigan in their eyes, if that makes sense.
So did you see Marshon's interview with Shannon Sharp?
I saw the 9-minute clip because that got sent to me like 3 times.
Right.
And then I saw Marshon's reaction or his recollection of the interception. So I haven't seen the full thing. I heard it's really long, but I've seen those like 2 hours. Which seem to be the most to the clips that people want to talk about the most.
So let's talk about the 9-minute clip. What did you think about that? What did you think about his comments about Russ?
I thought that was everyone who sent it to me. I hadn't heard that story, but B, my normal reply was like, "Man, that's a perfect illustration of why guys didn't click with Russ." Because, like I said, there's people there's my journalist homies or agents or coworkers are just like from afar, they're like, "Wait a minute, guys don't like Russ." It's just like, yeah, and it's really hard to explain, but that story is a really good example because in a vacuum, calling somebody from a block number is not even that crazy. Like teammates have done way worse things to each other. They beat each other up. They've like messed around with, they're all juggling some of the same chicks in a lot of cases. They've done that. They've owed each other money. They've backstabbed guys, like whatever. There's all these other things that are much worse than just like, yeah, I don't want this cat to have my number. Right. So, but it's incredibly tone deaf. And if you're Russ, you're like the one guy you like, dude, these guys have all formed a bond over here.
Yeah.
Like the Legion of Boom and like Marshon says in there, he was cool with everybody. Like Hauschka is the homie to a lot of those guys. And that's the kicker, John Ryan, Luke Wilson. Like it wasn't even just a bunch of black guys who liked each other. They all just meshed. It really didn't. It was kind of like what a lot of people want America, their vision of it to be, is everyone getting along no matter where they come from or what they look like. The Seahawks had kind of accomplished a little bit of that. It was like white guys from Canada or like farm boys from Iowa mixing with black dudes from Florida and from the South and from Compton. They all just kind of rocked. And then there was Russ over there kind of doing his thing. And he wasn't like he was doing a bunch of things wrong, like cussing guys out or lying on guys, or at least not to my knowledge. He was just over there. And being over there is fine when you're really good. And being over there is like fine when you're not getting in the way of anything. But like anyway, to go into the Marshon thing, I think that was a really good illustration of it because it really is hard to explain. I struggle with it all the time. I actually just met with some people at the New York Times, because they bought The Athletic. When I was out in New York, I met with some people on Monday. Like I met with a couple of executives and some other people. Like one of the executives, one of the first questions was like, "Yeah, so what do you think about Russell Wilson?" Like I get asked that quite a bit. I was just with the homie two nights ago. It just asked me the same thing. It's like, "Hey, bro," like he's like, "Hey, can I ask you something?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Do you like Russ?" And it's just like I'm indifferent on him. I don't like him, I don't dislike him. It doesn't really matter. Actually, this was yesterday. I got asked that. I
feel like that's probably partly at least because of that article you wrote, right? I think it was right after the trade or
no, this was the reason I got asked yesterday from the homie was because of the Marshon thing. Because that's been a big deal. It's like, yo, what's going on? What do you mean guys didn't rock? I thought that was a really good example because Russ is kind of that way. I think in that Wickersham story from 2017, he details like Russ making guys sign NDAs, I think, to hang with him in suites. I'd have to go back. I'm pretty sure I read that. Either that one or the SI one from Bishop way back when, or whoever wrote that one. So it's not a surprise, and it's not even that hard to see how Russ doesn't mesh with some of those guys. Marshon just gave a really, really, really good example of how that looked.
That's a great example to me because it's not just like being your own cat, like, hanging around with different guys or just keeping yourself to yourself in a respectful way. It's just kind of sly. Like it's kind of weird, the block number thing. It goes beyond that. And like you said, that team was like a beautiful marriage of all these different types of guys. And then, it's not like Russ wouldn't have had a space within that, from my understanding, way from the outside. And Marshon, in his beautiful way of communicating, and he just found the perfect way of communicating that, which is what he's a great communicator.
Marshon also kind of alluded, like he didn't outright say it, he kind of did. I don't think this is part of the clips that you saw, but I watched the whole interview, and he kind of alluded to Pete trying to recreate what he had in 2013 with this current roster instead of just.
What was interesting was he said that he thinks that to this day it's still impacting the Seahawks, and I don't know how like connected he is with this current like up to date iteration of the team, but like not letting guys be the best version of themselves, which Pete would always say is like his one goal. So if Pete heard Marshon say that, he'd probably find that
well, you said it within the context too of like being here or being in Seattle recently for the whole Super Bowl get together thing.
True. Yeah, but essentially not letting guys be the best, trying to seek like the next Michael Bennett, the next with LJ Collier, that was a big thing. They went to that immediately, but not letting guys just be the best them, but like always trying to recreate that 2013 thing, which we kind of spoke about already. But like, I mean, do you think Marshon saying that's interesting, but do you think that's a thing still, or are they getting over that still?
Like in terms of trying to just not like, hey, you're the next so-and-so instead of you just being
you are Michael Bennett.
Yeah, like I think about my favorite like thought of or image of that is like in the scene in the movie Coach Carter where they interview the guy from the other team. Forget what the good team, the one that they lost to at the end. They have a star player, and the reporter asked him like, how does it feel to be like the next LeBron James? And he says LeBron James, and he grabs the microphone. He says, I'm the only Ty Crane, and then he just ends the interview. It's like when I think of that, that's what it should be. I think DK Metcalf has spoken about that sometimes. Like he kind of alluded to that when he went off on the Eagles that one time because Jim Schwartz said he wasn't as like, man, you're not Megatron, but you nice or something to that effect. And DK's like, man, I'm the only DK Metcalf. That's all that matters. And yeah, we've seen that over the years where you drafted Rasheem Green or you drafted Michael Bennett and it's like, you drafted LJ Collier. It's like, all right, cool. We need you to be like Mike B. Or even when they drafted Trey Flowers and Shaquille Griffin, like Pete sit them down and then show them Sherm film, which like showing them Sherm film is not like bad, but everybody's wired differently. Well, yeah, there's also that, but it's like everyone is wired a little differently. I do think another issue that they had was just, well, one, they were just bad at drafting. I mean, a lot of those guys who they're trying to be the next somebody they're not even the best version of themselves now because half of them aren't in the league, so there's that. That was just part of it. But the other part was that they kind of got away from, and this is natural when you pay guys, you got away from may the best man win type of vibes, at each position. It was like, nah, the best man's not going to win because we just gave this wouldn't have actually happened. We just gave Cam Chancellor $30 million. So you're actually not going to play over him if you're better than him. So just kind of live with that. When you have that type of environment, you can't really, how dare you say always compete when you're just playing, you're playing the guys that you paid the most money or that you drafted the highest. That was an issue. The other thing was a lot of those guys were in awe of some of those guys that they drafted too. Like, they get there and it's like, yo, you're Cam Chancellor. It's like, hey, snap out of it, kid. Like, I need you to go take his job, because you're cheaper than him. And I don't know if they were saying it to them that way, but that was the effect that they wanted. And it was just like, okay, that didn't work. And now, like I said, none of those guys are in the league. But I do think Pete always empowers guys to be themselves. But yeah, there was that part hasn't changed. He's always embraced the individuality of each guy, from how they dress to how they talk to how they walk to how they play. Like all of that stuff is really important for those guys. But the getting away from getting detached from that Legion of Boom era, even schematically, like going away from some of that stuff, just like it just needed to be its own thing. Like I said, these last few years, I really felt like just a really long interlude in an album where it's just like, dude, just get to the next part. Like, why are we just humming? Drop the next beat. But they just needed time to create it, and it feels like now it's been created. Where that creates results, in winning, who knows? But it does feel like they have an identity and a vibe that kind of fits who they have, not just like fits who they have in relation to what they used to have, if that makes sense.
I love how
Right.
you mentioned schematically, because that's hearing you speak. That's what I was thinking. Like the fact that they've moved towards a system where they can't just go, "Hey, Michael Bennett did this." Like they have two guys doing what Michael Bennett tried to, was able to do. Having two outside linebackers all the time, playing slightly different coverages. The front office can't be like, "Hey, we drafted this next guy," because well, they'll still try to a bit, but they can't generally do it as much because they're running a different system. And I think, that's the exciting thing of like this era. If it does feel new, I think what you mentioned before is almost like they were shuffling chairs around on the deck when you got Bobby Wagner, Russell Wilson as your two like key pieces in the system, and now they're kind of actually new. Like it's new. Even if Bobby Wagner's back and balling out, so.
Yeah, I mean, we all have comps. Like everyone comes out the draft and they do comps. Like that hasn't changed either. But you can even see it now. I'm only thinking about this now. Listen to some of these comps that Pete brings up when someone asks, "Hey, have you ever had a player like this?" And his comps are not Legion of Boom characters. Now they're like guys from the Patriots or guys he had with the Bills and stuff like that. Guys from the Niners in the 90s.
NC State in the 70s.
Yeah, like NC State stuff. Like he's comping like, we had a guy like this. Like you guys probably don't even know, but it's this guy. You know what I mean? Like it's not
get on Wikipedia.
Just, he's like Byron Maxwell or something. Like no, he's getting away from those comps. I don't know if he's doing that consciously or not, but I have noticed that a little bit over the years because I've had to go Google these guys. I'm 31, so I don't really know guys from the 1992 Buffalo Bills or something. So I do have to go look them up. But when he's saying it, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, maybe we are getting away from. Like, okay, I got to find a guy who punches the ball like Maxie. I got to find a guy who gets strip sacks like Cliff. Got to find a single high guy like Earl. Like, even though they have Quandre to kind of replace that part, you guys get what I'm saying. Like that, those guys are just so unique that you're just not gonna recreate that energy. You can't. You gotta let whatever energy these guys have now just blossom. As long as they're good players. Because if they're not, they just get rid of them. But if you got good players now, so just let them be. Whoever they are.
There you go. Right, so Mike, I'm conscious of the time, and you've been very generous with it. But you are a writer, and you wrote a piece on the strengths, weaknesses, and questions after Seattle's impressive start. Given it is the bye week, it's probably good enough to ask: do you think they can fix those weaknesses, questions, negative surprises that you kind of highlighted in the article? We touched a bit on the offense with third downs, which is like, if you watch it, there's so many things going wrong that it's hard to isolate an issue. And that's why they focus on the whole thing of third downs, right? Can they fix that? Can they fix the downfield passing? And can they fix the pass defense? By the way, guys, check out that article because it's worth a subscription alone.
Yeah, the downfield passing is like that. I kind of expected that to struggle. Like even before I just took this nap, before I hopped on with you guys, I was watching the Bengals against the Titans because I was like, how the hell they scored 3 points? And then I looked and I'm like, oh, that's how. It's like teams have figured out that they just decided we will let Joe Mixon get his thing going here and there, but we're not going to let Jamar Chase run by us. We're not going to let T. Higgins run by us. And you can see some of that in the game that the Bengals won over the Rams, Monday night. And teams are playing the Seahawks similarly. The Rams did actually a really good job of it where they were playing off. They were in their too high structure, but then they were also rolling the safety down to basically like, hey, Tyler Lockett, if you run an over route, we are here. And it worked beautifully. And I imagine, I haven't watched a ton of the Chiefs. I imagine teams may be playing. Chiefs may be a bad example now because of their roster, but like the teams that have those explosive downfield threats, I would guess that all of their year-to-year numbers are probably down a little bit because teams have made that choice. We'll trust our big boys up front to handle it. If you run against us, particularly if you're going to run out of shotgun, we're really just going to trust our light box to handle it. And then on third down, we'll just unleash our guys. Now we can blitz you. Now we can play some man if we want, disguise the hell out of it, particularly if it's third and long. So that part I kind of saw coming because teams were already playing off them last year. The Niners were playing off of them. But now it's like, all right, you get to these third and manageable, which they're getting a decent amount of them. And now you're not getting there. And after you drafted JSN, I'm like, man, I thought this was going to click. Because one thing I noticed last year watching a lot of their third downs, I was like, man, Gino took a lot of sacks, as you guys know, last year. I was like, man, I can see why he is, because all these routes are taking too long.
Mm.
Like he's like, it's 3rd and 8. He waiting for everybody to clear the sticks. And before it's like, all right, now you break. It's like, okay, that kind of makes sense in theory. But it's like, I watch other teams on 3rd and 9 convert by throwing something that's 7 yards and then just falling forward, or just, wiggling by and getting the 9 yards. So I thought the Seahawks would maybe kind of implement some of that, naturally create some yards after catch on their 3rd downs. And they're just not. There's been Gino's thrown a couple of these like out routes to JSN that have gone nowhere. One of them almost got picked against the Lions. One of them got knocked down against the Panthers. And if he caught it, it would have been short. The one JSN dropped against the Rams probably would have been short anyway. There's just his usage in particular on 3rd down has stood out, where it's like it looks a lot of the same problems. There seems like they only have 2 answers for 3rd down. It's like protect better or run a screen. And it's like, well, you can't count on the former all the ways, because as much as Stone and Jake have done a really good job, they're still, that Kayvon Thibodeau still had the 2 sacks for a reason, right? Like that happens. And whoever 51 is for the Giants had some plays where he beat Stone as well. So like they can't always count on protect better, because I guarantee you that's what they're saying there too. Like if we just hold up, guys will get open. And it also can't just be, all right, let's just run a screen. No, you guys suck at screens. Stop running that. So that's the main one I'm interested in seeing them fix. I do think there is a natural fix particularly with JSN. They can have him run more stuff that breaks just inward. He keeps running stuff that breaks outward. And it's
that Giants game, there was like a 3rd and 4 where it looked like it was designed for JSN, but they got man coverage and they're running a man beater out of like a bunch look. Griff and I looked at it yesterday.
Yeah.
And they all just run into each other, and JSN
there's
falls
3
over.
guys and 4
and
defenders.
It's like that was your chance, man. And then Gino's back there. Forsyth gets speed rushed off the edge, and he's like, whoa. It's like poor old Gino, man.
I was just watching that. I just finished the offensive tape this morning, and I was like, I almost screenshotted it and tweeted it. I just didn't feel like it. I was like, there's 3 dudes standing within like 3 steps of each other.
It's like, nope.
And then 4 defenders right there, and you can tell Gino's probably like, oh damn, I'm screwed. And then it gets, even if Stone didn't get beat that fast, Gino just had JSN doesn't even throw the ball or doesn't even turn around, I don't think, till Gino's getting wrapped up. So I just think there's an easy fix there, I feel like, with those guys. I really think what they can get some teams on too is, there was a play against the Lions last year. This is kind of obscure, but DK comes across the field from the left. So he goes from left to right, and everyone on the right side kind of it looks like they're just running like dummy routes, because they just get vertical. And Gino hits DK coming across, and DK drops it. But if he catches it, it looks like a natural like screen on the other side of the field. I probably have to go find it, but it was, I think, some more stuff like that where you don't have to run a normal screen. You can kind of get creative with it to get guys natural yak. Kind of similar to what they just ran with Charbonnet against the Giants, where like, all right, it doesn't look like a regular screen setup. Like if you're just studying films, like this is not how they usually look. Then you motion them, boom, get him, and that play got like 9 yards on like 1st and 20, I think. Like there's some stuff they can do like that. The other thing, I think, I don't know how much they trust Ken with the blitz protections, but Ken on 3rd down would probably be really helpful too, to get the ball in his hands. Maybe you play him and DJ together so DJ can handle the blitzes, and you split Ken out, because Ken's making a guy miss like every time he touches the ball, which is really not what you're not getting that from anyone other than DK. DK is running guys over, and that's it. Tyler gets down. JSN is like literally forced 0 missed tackles this year, according to PFF. So I think Ken on 3rd down, getting the ball in his hands would probably be another solution. Like all of these are really easy too. I'm not even getting into that much schematic stuff. It just seems like tweak a couple things here and there, and you'll get away from being as bad as the Jets on 3rd down, which again, that's just, you never want to be there with them on offense. They are a bad offense. Do not be lumped near the Jets.
Absolutely. Ty, have you got any other questions, or should we?
Just real quick. What's the best road trip spot you've been to? Like, what's your favorite road trip to go on?
I'd have to rule out the international, because those are in a different bag, because those were easily the 2 best.
Oh, come on, Mike. We met.
I was trying to bait you into saying Germany here.
Yeah, well, London was really great too. London was great. I was in London for like a week, and it was really, really fun. That was my first time out of the country, other than going to Toronto. So that was really cool. The love from the people overseas was just so cool. To meet people, because I'm from Seattle too, so like to meet someone from Scotland or something who's like a diehard Seahawks fan, I'm like, that's really dope to see that. Like dude, you are thousands and thousands of miles away, and you are just as locked in as people I went to middle school with. That's really cool is to see that from afar, with the Seahawks. And I don't know if that's the case with some of our other sports. I know it's probably not with the Kraken because they're so new, but like I don't know how many. I mean, I doubt it is with the Sonics, and I don't know how many people in like Spain are staying up to watch the Mariners.
Well, and even like
So
sports, wise, NBA is so like star driven that I don't think if the Sonics came back, I don't think that would be a thing.
yeah, so that was really cool. The people who listen to our pod and like who know who I am as a writer when I went to Germany, that was really cool to be like, oh man, yeah, no, listen, or oh yeah, or we like, hey, we met in London. I don't know if you remember, and it's just like, oh yeah, yeah, like that was cool. It was almost like a big family reunion in Germany. So that was really dope. Like those are a whole different bag because the fandom is just so different out there. The dedication to wake up at whatever time you got to wake up in your respective country to watch a Seahawks game that goes down to the wire because that's how Pete likes to play it. Like that's real dedication, like dedication that you just don't get even if you grew up here. So those are the best in that regard. Domestically, I'm trying to think. I was just telling somebody I'm gonna cross off like nearly every stadium this year too, which is
Wow.
which is dope.
That's awesome.
I think because I'll cross off Baltimore, Cincinnati, Nashville, and I just crossed off MetLife. So that's four right there. And after that, the only remaining ones I haven't been to, I think, would just be Kansas City, Jacksonville, and Tampa. I think those will be the last three. And so I'm not going to cross. Oh, and sorry, no, New England and then Buffalo. So a bunch of AFC
Yeah, that's
bracket
tough.
teams too. Yeah, so I'm probably not going to go to any of those anytime soon. But so I say domestically, I like Detroit. Detroit's cool. Detroit just always has something to do down in that downtown area. There's a lot of black people in Detroit, so that's always fun too. Because like there's just not. So as soon as you step off the plane in cities like Atlanta and Detroit, you're like, all right, cool. Like, everybody else is wearing do-rags too, or everybody else has like two-tones dreadlocks too. It's not just me. This is cool. This is like I'm just kind of blending in versus like standing out in some of these other cities. So those are two that really stand out. Any southern place, the food has always been great. Like Charlotte, Atlanta, New Orleans. I ate so good in New Orleans. I probably gained a full pound last year in that game. That was just great. Houston.
We need a
I
playoff
love all
run
those
from
spots.
Seattle, which is just in the south, or also hits in Detroit as well, and then we're good.
Yeah, I mean it's not unrealistic. We could get like a wild card game at the AFC South winner, which could be Tampa, Atlanta, or New Orleans. I probably want New Orleans because their offense stinks, but could be possible. And then we get like a divisional round at Detroit.
Lovely,
doable, and then go down to the Bay, or Philly. I like Philly too. Philly had like a really cool shoe boutique down there where I got some Jordan 12s. I have been trying to get for a couple of years, and I was able to get them. I forget what the name of the spot is, or I'd shout them out.
Which
I'm also
Jordan 12s?
Cheesesteaks are great there too. They're black and white. I don't know if they have a name, but black on the top, white on the bottom.
Nice.
Those I was trying to get those for a little bit, and like the day before they played Philly, I was able to go get a cheesesteak, go back to my hotel, then go back out and go buy those. So,
what a day!
And I was able to go to a Sixers game too. Actually, that was fun. Yeah, because their setup is cool. I know most teams can't do this, but like I think everything is right in the same spot where the Flyers play, where the Phillies play, the Sixers, and the Eagles. I think it's all like in the same little spot, like maybe it's called City Center or something. Like it's like all right there. That's like ideal. Yeah, I wish more of them were like that because that was pretty dope. Yeah. So Philly, if that's how the playoff shook out, I'd be okay with that. And it takes a lot for me to be okay with going to Detroit in January, but I would be okay with it just because I like that city.
Very quick. What's your favorite pair of shoes right now?
Ooh, right now. Can I grab them?
Yeah.
Can I
go
Oh,
for it. Yeah, grab them.
We're live. You-
I got two. One sec.
Show
Let's
and
go.
tell. Show and tell.
Here
All
we
right, I
go.
got two.
I got deep in my bag.
One of them is these Pumas.
Oh, those are sick.
So my brother gave me these because he said they made his feet look fat or something. So I've been wearing these quite a bit, getting a lot of attention from people. Like when I go out, like where I'm sitting down, walking through the locker rooms, people are like, oh yeah, those is cool. And then these are probably my favorite shoe ever, right here.
Oh yeah,
Is the-
yeah. The Witherspoon. Yeah,
Yeah,
There you
those
go.
ones are just
yeah.
you
That's
can't.
very nice.
I paid a
They're in good condition as
pretty-
well. Do you wear
Yeah, I
them?
try to keep them. I try to keep them that way. Yeah, I
Yeah.
wore them. Just wore them yesterday when I said I went to dinner with somebody. I went to
There you go.
wearing those. Yeah, those are
They're
my,
the dinner
my
shoes. Yeah.
favorites. I've paid those are the Witherspoons are my. I don't feel comfortable saying how much, but it was way too much.
Yeah,
but
it's
yeah,
okay.
It was,
It's okay. We understand.
yeah,
I'd probably
it was
pay that.
I live up to my bio. Let's put it that way. Like I will in on my Twitter bio that says I buy expensive sneakers. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, I
the
remember
Witherspoons.
we were talking about the Red Octobers in Munich.
Oh
and,
yeah,
and
I
Gino's
don't
ones.
have those. But yeah, I was like Gino, bro, can you see? Because he says he has multiple. I'm like, come on, please.
Multiple.
Like, he probably wears a bigger size than me, so it probably
Gino
doesn't
has
matter, but I was like,
multiple of the Red Octobers. That's crazy.
yes, man. Because I was like,
That's
trying to
crazy.
sell him. He was like, nah. I'm like, you're killing me. Oh my goodness, because I would pay a pretty penny for some Red Octobers, like because they're just going. The price is just going up to the point where I can't get it yet. And I don't even feel bad about it because like I did a shoe story in 2019 and like Quentin Jefferson was even like, dog, I'm not paying what they cost right now. So like and that made me feel good. I was like, if this dude's not, then
Yeah.
okay, I'm not tripping if I won't either. But yeah, those are probably my favorite too. I wore those Pumas in New York. Those were kind of cool, real comfy. They're kind of like fall colory, so it works, you know. So yeah, shout out to my brother Tay for giving me those.
There you
That's
go.
sick. That's
All
sick.
right. Well, Mike, thank you so much for your time. Listeners, you've got to, and watchers, you've got to check out Mike's latest article on budding stars of the Seahawks. Enjoyed reading that. And I liked seeing, I don't want to spoil the whole article, but Jarek Reed on there. I love that.
Got
Jarek
to,
Reed
man.
can play.
I didn't have room where I had to throw Bobo in there too, but yeah.
Yeah,
Jarek
but
Reed on
he's
special
not
teams
even a
is
budding star. He's just a star. So
That's true.
Superstar.
More Bobo. Actually, you know what? After this, I'm gonna tweet a Bobo clip. Why not? I have
Yeah.
one.
There you go.
Yeah, he's my weekly dose of
Man of the
more
people.
Bobo.
Man of the people, Mike Dugar.
Yeah, man. Gotta get that engagement, man, before Elon just completely ruins that site
oh my word. I mean, he's been ruining that site, but yeah.
for quite some time. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Mike. Do you have anything else you want to plug or?
Just always go check out our Seahawks Man to Man podcast. Man, we are me and Chris. We're down to one episode a week this season. Maybe we'll change that, but that's where we're at right now. That's why our episodes have been longer. But man, we basically have been doing just mailbags after every game, and we love the questions that we get because it just kind of represents the engagement that people have feel with our show to the point where I'm recognizing the names now, like not even the name, like the @name. Chris will read them. I'm like, oh, I know who that is. Like, what up? Like, you really care.
Yeah.
So, Seahawks Man to Man on YouTube, Man the number 2 Man. We're on Spotify, Apple, The Athletic, probably Google Podcasts too. I don't know. Wherever you get them, we're probably there. So, and hit the subscribe button on that. Appreciate the love and support on there always.
There you go. I like how you've been putting video clips on there occasionally as well of like the game, I should say. So
yeah. We don't. I don't know if we're supposed to, but until we get that cease and desist from the NFL, we're just gonna keep. So I told Chris, I was like, until they shut us down, let's just keep doing it, man. Screw it.
Keep it moving, dude.
That's what we're doing. There you go. They can't stop all of us.
Right. That's honestly, I almost put one in my article when we're not supposed to. I didn't. But I was like, yeah, they can't. There's no way if I just slip this all 22 in of this pick 6, like that they're gonna find this one mention of it in the Seahawks article. It's like, no, they're not. But
you gotta pick and choose. You gotta be selective with it, you know.
Yeah, maybe a playoff game or something like that. I'll try it. But yeah, I figured on our YouTube channel, I was like, whatever, man. Everybody, there's so if you type in Seahawks film on YouTube, there's so much stuff, or just NFL film. Like Maddie said, they're not gonna shut down all of us. So.
Yeah.
There you go.
I feel okay about it. I feel like Brady Ballinger is going to get got before we do. So we'll be all right.
All right. listeners, please make sure you like the video, comment down below, subscribe, review 5 stars, follow Ty at Dane Gunzelus, follow me at Matty F. Brown, and follow Mike at Mike Dugar on X or whatever it is. All right. Thanks very much, everyone. Have a good rest of your day, evening, night, morning, whatever.
Appreciate it.